than we'd expect. Oh, and as you've just heard, we will be recording today's event. So we'll be making it available on YouTube and available on social media and places like that afterwards as well, so you can share the links. So I don't think there's any housekeeping to run through. It's a webinar format. You'll be able to hear and see the panelists. If you're joining us and you aren't on the panel, you'll be able to add your questions into the chat box or use the Q&A function. So before I introduce our finalists today, just a little bit of kind of the background to the award really. So the Community Action Award is sponsored by the CLD Standards Council for Scotland. And this has been one of the award categories that's been kind of most popular in the last year. And we've had some absolutely amazing examples of people submitting nominations. And I think, as we all know, across Scotland, sort of small voluntary groups, grassroots organisations are doing and have done extraordinary work as part of their local communities. And that's both geographical communities and kind of communities of interest. We know that the kind of deep understanding of local needs and enthusiasm, it's possible to make a really significant impact. So the people I'm going to be chatting with today have been shortlisted by our judges. As I said, a really strong field with many, many applications, and they were looking for clear evidence that the entries were community-led rather than being directed by a larger charity, and looking for facts and figures and real-life examples of how the project improved the lives of real people in this community. So we're going to get to know the organisations and their work really well over the next kind of 45, 35 minutes. But by way of introduction, I'm going to ask our finalists just to give us a 90-second pitch to help us understand why they're so great. So if we can kick off, if that's okay, with Suzanne Macleod, who's joining us from Cumbernauld Resilience. So over to you, Suzanne.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much. 90 seconds is such a short time to give you all the detail about what we do. But anyway, Cumbernauld Resilience is a COVID response charity. We were established back in March 2020, really as a result of the sort of looming lockdown that we had a feeling was going to happen. Our aim was to deliver food parcels to people in our community of Cumbernauld, folk who were isolating, who maybe were shielding but weren't getting government support, people who had maybe elderly parents who couldn't get, were relying on their children to get to them, couldn't get to them, etc. We also knew that our food banks were closing down fairly rapidly at that point in time, so we knew that there was definitely a need there. Pretty quickly, we set up a 24/7 phone line, and we leafleted 30,000 houses within the community to let people know what we were doing. We set up a volunteer database, and we had, at the height of our operation, over 150 volunteers in a whole range of different places, delivering meals, packing meals, sourcing food, writing funding bids, etc. We sourced our premises, we sourced food, we sourced funding. We set up partnerships with, for example, Cumbernauld Colts, who took on doing our prescriptions. And in the background, of course, we were then trying to set up to become a charity and set up bank accounts and all of those things. We, just to sort of finish off, we in the year delivered over 90,000 meals to people within our community. And we also fed 600 people at Christmas with a full Christmas dinner, including prezzies for all of the adults and all of the kids. Whistle stop tour.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Suzanne. Those numbers are absolutely incredible. I think when I was rereading your application, and I was just amazed again at kind of the impact that your organisation's had. So well done, and thank you very much for that whistle stop tour. I'll hand over to Mark now, who's going to share a little bit of what they've been up to with his organisation.
Thanks, Beth, and how do you follow that? That's from Suzanne. So I'm the founder and director from Recovery Enterprises Scotland. We're a community interest company set up in January 2019. We were really saddened, like most of us, that our recovery cafe, Foundations Cafe, we had to close in March 2020 due to the pandemic. Really difficult, particularly as the momentum was really kind of growing. We'd served 900 meals since the launch in November 2019, and it was an approach supporting the kind of development of volunteers and mainly people in recovery who were thriving with newfound meaning and hope and opportunity by contributing to community wellbeing. So within a short space of time in lockdown, those positive outlooks and support networks changed significantly. Those connections and purpose becoming isolation and a new set of challenges. And I think the pandemic placing a unique experience in us all, but it's impacting greater on certain kind of social groups. So like most businesses, we required adapting and innovating, and through liaising with the kind of cafe team, we agreed in providing a kind of mobile food provision, with the initial community location established within kind of cafe volunteers neighbourhoods in northwest Cumbernauld, with vulnerable people and families being identified through this unique local intelligence that we had with the volunteers. And these are areas within the kind of top 5% within the Scottish Index of multiple deprivations. So a whole set of kind of challenges for particular neighbourhoods. So our community outreach kind of is taking place on a weekly basis, where the team are making up hampers. So initially we identified 40 households within the neighbourhood, and that quickly grew to 87 households. And this was mainly through word of mouth and the community supporting each other. They were really directing us to where that kind of need was. So it was really good to be kind of led that way. And the hampers were that initial kind of lever for engagement, that people were opening doors to us, and then we're developing the trust and relationships and looking at the kind of the unmet needs and how we could then link in with services. So since June of 2020, we've engaged with over 150 households. We've provided 4,200 food parcels. And I think mainly to people that are not really in receipt of or known to services. So it's been really good in terms of kind of bridging that kind of gap. We also provide to the Blue Triangle Young People's kind of hostel. So our approach has been far more than just providing food. It's connecting that human level. It's raising self-esteem and worth, and just being proactive. We seem to be seen as a trusted provider. We're not a statutory. We're not a service that you can let your kind of guard down to. And we're just trying to reduce some of the barriers. And I think we also kind of managed to get access to own premises in November of last year. So that's been really good in terms of delivering a kind of a community hub, where many of the people that we've engaged with the kind of food deliveries are now engaging within the premises. So we're able to offer kind of more kind of intensive support, where people can access us in a way that they might not be able to access other services. So we're hoping that we are kind of making a difference to some of our most marginalised communities. So thanks for the opportunity.
Fantastic, that's great. Thank you, Mark. And again, sort of reading your application and hearing you speak just now, it sounds like the impact you've made on the people that you work with has been so significant. And lots of similar stuff to what Suzanne was saying, but a slightly different model, because you already were in existence, obviously, before the pandemic. So kind of taking the lessons you already had and the people that were already engaged with you kind of along the journey. So this question I think is a slightly unfair one, because you've both been doing so much. But if I can ask Suzanne, first of all, can you tell us, how would you kind of think about the greatest achievement that you kind of made over the last year? What was the thing that you are most proud of?
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and initially, I suppose, on the face of it, the greatest achievement is feeding so many people in a time of crisis. That would be the sort of on the surface level, I think that's what the greatest achievement is. But actually, it kind of echoes what Mark's saying about, for me, the importance or the biggest achievement, I suppose, was building the team and sustaining that team. So at any point in time at the beginning of this, we had 8 teams going out on a daily basis delivering food. Now, everything obviously had to be done in a COVID-safe way, and also with safety of our drivers and people in mind. But they were only the sort of frontline view. We had people packing bags, sorting food, and a whole range of other things behind the scenes. And people kept coming back time and time and time again. And their kindness and generosity was just overwhelming. And so I think building the team and sustaining that team and recognising that team for us is probably our greatest achievement. Our town, and I suppose actually Mark might recognise this, about you know, sort of our town, new towns and things like that are kind of prone to getting knocked and getting, you know, bad mouthed at times and stuff like that. And actually, when you go below the surface and you see the people, that's where our strength lies. And I'm actually getting quite emotional on this. I haven't been like that before, but actually that's really where our strength lies, is the people involved in this project have just been outstanding and continue to this day, even though our services had to change and develop into a sort of new model, given that, you know, the restrictions are lifting, they stick with us all the time, and that's incredible.
Thanks, Suzanne. That was wonderful. Really nice to hear. And yeah, I think it's not underestimated, but it's maybe understated sometimes how important it is for the people involved in community initiatives, the benefits of volunteering and the impact. It's not a case of we're helping those needy people. It's a case of we're all together helping one another, and it's it's quite inspirational. So thank you. Mark, same question over to you. If it's not an unfair question, what would you kind of say was the greatest achievement?
I think that you just never envisage kind of how this is going to kind of pan out, kind of thing, and I think it's quite hard to kind of recognise, obviously, the kind of what you have achieved till you maybe try and get a chance to kind of sit for 5 minutes and think about that. And I think that when I was kind of saying there that kind of the initial pitch, that when the initial lockdown kind of kicked in, we were really devastated with regards to providing a recovery cafe and what that was kind of meaning to volunteers and what that was meaning to the community. And you're thinking, is this the end of it? No, I mean, is this so we really had to kind of regroup rather quickly. But I think what it demonstrated was just how passionate people are to supporting their community, how we were able to adapt, how we were flexible, determined, and having that bit of education as well, kind of thing, that about kind of where do you take this, because when our cafe closed, and effectively we were homeless because the premises were closed, and you're thinking that, just where do you go from there? But it's just so humbling to kind of witness the kind of compassion and the commitment by the team and supporting their communities, and to think about the kind of as a kind of a small kind of grassroots organisation, to actually see the growth and impact that we've made whilst overcoming so many logistical and emotional challenges, and I think that just developing those relationships within the heart of disadvantaged kind of communities and neighbourhoods, where people within those communities have felt valued and belonging, which has sadly not been there for. I mean, it's not just during a lockdown, but as I say, people are presented with such significant daily kind of challenges, and the kind of stigma and the isolation and everything else that kind of comes with it. So I think all in all, it's the fact that we've been able to kind of keep operating whilst so much was basically kind of locked down, services as well, kind of thing. So it's just a testament to everyone's efforts, and I don't know if that is just an achievement its own, but just that it's a general ramble kind of just about what has been achieved, and it's just good to know that you made an impact within the communities. So I'll leave it at that.
Fantastic, thank you. That wasn't a ramble at all. It was very eloquent, and really well put. Lovely. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now a wee bit about if you can kind of reflect on maybe some of the lessons that you've kind of learned. If other people are watching this, hopefully we'll not be in the same position where we're going into an unexpected pandemic again. But if people are kind of thinking about galvanising their community and getting together, are there lessons that you could share that might be able to help them and be useful for you to reflect? So I'll come to Suzanne again.
Okay. The one word that really struck me when I was thinking about this was flexibility. And we've had to be so responsive to really changing demands over the past year and a bit. And and also to be flexible enough to listen to feedback that people are providing to you. So if our volunteer drivers came up with an idea, then we would mull that over and think about, how we could develop it and implement it. The same with, the teams that worked in our kitchen or in our packing, for example. And one of the things that we quickly noticed was that our audience, a lot of our audience were elderly or people with disabilities who didn't have the capacity for a range of reasons to be able to stand and cook a proper healthy meal. And that feedback came into us quite early on. And so we started to develop our own cooking facility where we decided that, we needed to source local good produce, healthy produce. And we started to cook meals that were traditional home cook style, things that people, hearty meals, but really healthy ones. And what we would do is chill them down and they would go out as chilled ready meals. A bit like the models that you see commercially produced, but much better quality and free of charge, of course. So that was an idea that came back through through our volunteering team. And we developed that. And in actual fact, as time has gone on, that's going to be the model that we're going to continue with, because the crisis element, thank goodness for the moment, has gone. We don't have that, but we are going to be able to continue as an organisation because we didn't want to lose all that real, activity and commitment that we had built up. So flexibility is probably our biggest lesson. Challenges were around setting up a bank account was the most difficult thing we had to do in the year and a half that we've been operating. It was the most challenging thing, and we were really lucky that initially we were able to use a sister charity's bank account to filter our money through, because we were very, very conscious of governance and making sure that everyone was protected. So that was the biggest challenge. The other lesson that we learned really early on was that whilst we were in crisis mode, we also recognised that there were families out there that were really struggling and things were really dire for people. So we always made sure that we put a treat in, whether that was a bar of chocolate, if it was a box of chocolates. We had craft packs made up for kids. So we knew that when there were families with young kids, we made up craft pack. Well, one of our sister charities, the Cumbernauld Baby Bank, on behalf of us, made up some craft packs and we got them out to people. So it was also about making sure that actually there was a wee bit of brightness in the darkness. So it wasn't just about sustaining people in terms of, everyday food and groceries and toiletries and what have you, but it was also a wee bit about, let's just try and bring a bit of brightness to people's lives. So those are the two big areas that I think we would focus on.
Brilliant, that's great, thanks. It must have been a total joy when the kids got those craft packs through the door. Remember that kind of back early when, you weren't seeing anybody, and just to be rainbows that people put up made such a difference, didn't they?
Yeah, it was wonderful. We had one family where every time they got something, their two little girls sent us a picture in. Aww. And so we asked them to design our Christmas card, and the little girls had their drawing in the front of our Christmas card, which we had printed up, and it was lovely and it was joyful.
Yeah, lovely, great, what a lovely story, brilliant. And Mark, over to you, kind of lessons learned, things you'd like to share?
I'm not so sure about kind of lessons learned, but I think it's certainly lessons that are kind of hitting you right between the eyes. And I think it's quite ironic to kind of, when we describe the kind of neighbourhoods and people that are kind of deemed hard to reach, though it's kind of what we've kind of managed to demonstrate is kind of real kind of positive outcomes when we've been proactively reaching out to people. And I think it's that kind of, opposed to expecting people to come through service doors. And I think that for us, it's a real lesson, I mean, in a collective sense about how do we consider the needs of all the communities? And this new kind of new way of life, it's not even so much about, we're talking here about emergency responses, but how do we make this kind of more kind of more normalised and embedded with regards to kind of being more proactive. And I think that we're looking at, we need to focus on that kind of social recovery and how do we maximise resources and how do we empower communities. And I guess that these aren't, it's not so much about the lessons learned. I think the lessons learned needs to be about what do we do from moving forward. And I think it's about, certainly, as I say, when you're seeing it firsthand, that it's how do we really consider kind of groups at the real kind of margins. And I think that we talk too easily about inequalities, but we don't choose to kind of fully understand what does that actually mean for that individual or that household. I think we seem to kind of keep on kind of boxing up kind of these kind of big words, but without a kind of a real understanding about what it actually means to members of the kind of community. And I think for me, what is clear, resources and people on the ground have never mattered as much. And it really does raise the kind of question of the kind of our kind of top-down kind of frameworks in terms of how do we, and I guess it's a plea for a grassroots organisation about how do we support what we're doing and what Suzanne's doing, and what other projects are doing. How do we support those grassroots projects, not through emergency response, but how do we help create that kind of support and sustainability for having this ongoing impact within the kind of communities? And I think that what has been really clear as well is that we look around and we see a lot of the same services continue to be kind of commissions, but yet what we're identifying is blatant gaps and unmet needs. And I guess for me, as I say, that this is a kind of far bigger kind of discussion than what a webinar can offer. But to me, these are the lessons that have been learned. But I think for me, being in the field for over 20 years, I think what's more important for me is like, how do we change our approaches in response to those lessons learned? And I hope it's not just like, yeah, it's good to kind of make a kind of pitch and share our experiences through a kind of being shortlisted for a national awards event, which is fantastic and really welcome that opportunity. But I think moving forward, it's about how do the SCVO and other larger organisations really sit around these kind of strategic tables and actually share what learning has been provided from projects to then move it forward. Because we all keep on hearing about we need to change, but what is it we're actually going to do about it? So again, I hope that answers some of the stuff that has been learned, and I appreciate that. I go on a wee bit about that. Just a passion that I've got for making a difference.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. And I think a point really well made, and a kind of a good challenge, and something that I certainly know from kind of being in a national organisation is a regular reflection. You know, why is it us that are at that table? It should be some of the people that are on the ground doing the grassroots work. So we'll maybe pick that up in a bigger conversation kind of outside of the webinar today. So thanks. We've been joined now by Fraser from TripleTapTech. Sorry, Fraser. So it's lovely to have you with us. We've got about 15 minutes left, so hopefully we'll have a bit of time to hear a little bit about your project as well, Fraser. Do you want to come off mute and give us maybe your kind of 90-second overview just for people who are joining us today?
So thank you for inviting us along there. Sorry I was a wee bit late there. It was sort of technical issues, which isn't good for a technical charity, but we had some issues there. But yeah, so TripleTapTech, it's a charity that both myself and my good friend Graham set up to help provide advice, help, support and training to anyone with visual impairment and accessing and using technology. So we set up the charity, it seems ages ago now, back in 2018. And we've got our office based in Glasgow. We're up in the Bar Street Charing Cross in Glasgow. And one of the things that we noticed over the past year, the charity was saying earlier on, was with the pandemic hitting, everything got sort of tossed upside down and roundabout in regards to how support can be given, how people with visual impairment can receive support. And we found that quite a lot of people with visual impairment were being left and being very isolated because, first of all, they couldn't access technology, or so they couldn't access an iPad or a smartphone, tablet, etc. But they also didn't have the proper training and support to be able to continue to use the devices. So what we had done, we'd initially set up as a face-to-face service. So people come into the office, we go out visit them in their homes. We could set up the technology for them and get everything sort of working nicely for them. And if they had any issues with that, they could give us a phone call and we'd sort of help them. That way, obviously, we couldn't do that. So we had to transfer our service to what we called a remote service. That was providing it sort of over the internet, over the phone, using digital platforms, all that jazz. So we managed to set all that up. And sort of just for some facts and figures of what we've done. Over the past year, between myself and Graham, we're both registered blind ourselves, and we've both got sort of a severe visual impairment. We've helped out over 120 people with, I'll start again there, sorry, 120 people with one-to-one training, that's over the phone on the last sort of month in our office. We have set up a helpline that people can phone, and that's received probably over 300 calls over the past year. We've also designed an accessible website that gives guides, reviews, help and advice, and not just to technology, but sight loss too. And that generally receives between 700 to 1,000 hits per month. So we're very proud of the website. So as I say, TripleTap, myself and Graham, we were sort of involved with different organisations going back many years in training accessible technology. But we noticed there was a distinct lack of ongoing support for people with visual impairment, first to access technology, try it out before they buy it, and also getting continuing support with it, because we all know Facebook and that changes every few months. So something can happen on it and it sort of knocks voiceover off when it's working on it. So we're there to sort of provide that support, but more importantly, we're also got a social element to us. So we run quite a lot of groups and clubs over not just Zoom, but also sort of in our office. One of the ones that I'm quite happy we've set up again, this is just sort of total field graph to do with technology, as we're set up a tandem cycling event. That'll be starting in the second. So again, it's just to try and get people with visual impairment come together, sort of build up a community with them, so they're not feeling as isolated. Because over the state of the sort of the COVID restrictions and that, people with visual impairment were left sort of to their own devices, and a lot of them were really struggling to access basic services, not just sort of access communication, but also ordering food online, as everything was done online with sort of online shopping and that. So that's where we sort of stepped in and tried to help out the best that we could.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Fraser. And a slightly different kind of focus, I suppose, to the other two projects, because you're more interested in a particular geography. But again, loads of examples there of how you've been really responsive to need and adapted your services and made sure you're still supporting people in the way that they want it. So
yeah, we're very focused on being community led. So what the needs that come into us is we're very adaptive that way. So we sort of adapt around and try and meet the needs the best that we can.
Yeah, fantastic, great. So I'm going to stick with you, Fraser, if that's okay, and just ask one of the questions that we asked the other organisations. So it'd be great if you could just share, and this is quite a hard question, I know, but what you would see as the kind of the greatest achievement that your organisation's made over the last kind of year, 18 months. Cool.
So I could probably put that down into two different subjects. So the first one, sort of on a technical level, is the development of our website, where it's got all the sort of help, guide, reviews, everything to do with technology and visual impairment on it. So that's probably our standout achievement, as that's sort of reached not just sort of Scotland-wide, but nationwide with the UK and also worldwide, where you get hits coming from all over the place. So that's probably our biggest technical sort of achievement. On sort of a personal level, one of the clients that we've supported for a few years now, at the start of lockdown, we phoned our clients to make sure, first of all, they were okay and if we could offer any help or assistance. And he was feeling quite isolated because his phone had stopped working, and sort of friends and family sort of couldn't come around to have a look at it for him. So we sort of sent him out a new phone and set it up for him. Now, from that point, every week during the lockdown, I've been on the phone to him, not just helping him out with phone and technology in the house, but just building up a relationship with him and making sure that he's okay and that he's got somebody to talk to at the end of the day to try and say to negate the isolation that many of us were feeling. Now that the lockdown restriction that's ended, he's actually coming in and starting to do sort of volunteering that with our groups and that too. So again, from ourselves, that's really good that we've seen him in this journey coming through from the start to not at the finish yet. Hopefully it's just the beginning, as they say. But yeah, it's good to sort of see how he's sort of come on in that process.
Thanks, Fraser. That's a really brilliant example and really lovely to hear. Thank you very much for sharing. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So I was going to ask if it's okay just to come to each of you and give you a few minutes just to tell us a wee bit about kind of what's coming next for your organisation. It'd be great to hear what the plans are, and I know we've kind of touched on that a little bit, but it'd be lovely just to hear a wee bit more of that detail before we have to sign off. So I'll come to Suzanne first again, if that's okay, Suzanne.
Yep. That was a really lovely story, by the way, Fraser. I thought that was really nice, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's about, at the end of the day, it's about the impact on those individuals and what you can do for them. So we, because we were COVID response and emergency, we're quite having to adapt our service quite a bit. But because of the feedback we received, I talked earlier about the cooked food that we were doing. Oh God, sorry about that. I talked earlier about the cooked meals that we were doing, and that's the line that we're going to continue working on. So the model that we're developing at the moment is that we've got a client base at the moment who we regularly supply. We've gone down to delivering once or twice a week, depending on the need of the individuals. And we're going to continue to work with those individuals and hopefully build that base where we are delivering the ready meals, the cooked healthy ready meals. And if people are able to, they can make a donation, but it's a free service that we're providing. We tend to find that it's elderly people and people with disabilities who are struggling with capacity to cook. The other kind of things that we're doing, last weekend, we went out to 3 retirement complexes and delivered afternoon teas to all of the residents. And we had a music group with us, and fortunately the weather was great, so we were really lucky. And we were able to sit out either in the gardens or in communal areas and have a sing-song with some of the residents. That was absolutely brilliant. Our volunteers loved every second of it, and the residents did as well. So those are the kind of things that, as things are becoming more easy, that we can get out and about, that we're going to develop into those areas as well. And at the end of it, you'd asked about advice, what advice would we give? At the end of the day, we're focusing on individuals and about being out there and having fun and trying to bring the sunshine back for people. So that's us.
That's great. I think I'll move to Cumbernauld. It sounds brilliant. I think none of us will take for granted singing with other people ever again, will we? It's such a joy. So thank you. Great. And Mark, over to you. Yeah, you can just share a wee bit about kind of what comes next.
Well, our kind of goal and vision is delivering a 7-day recovery hub, where throughout the week and evenings and what have you. So the hub is currently being delivered 4 days per week just now, and as I say, we're just trying to increase the kind of capacity and just kind of reflecting our delivery kind of and the kind of resources that we do have. Our food deliveries will continue on a weekly basis because, like Suzanne had mentioned earlier on, about just the kind of nature of the community that we engage with. I mean, it's from the kind of the very young to the kind of very elderly, and we recognise that people are kind of struggling to access kind of community support. So we are certainly prioritising about those kind of households that would really benefit from the kind of food hampers and just getting that kind of weekly kind of check-in, and just to know that somebody's there and they're going to be kind of chapping their door and can get a kind of a chat for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, kind of thing. And our kind of our hope is that whilst that a number of the people that we were delivering to have been able to access our hub, our hope is that we'll be managed to engage with more of those kind of households where because we want to see people part of the community in the broadest sense, and we want them to kind of feel that they are safe and they're comfortable and confident in accessing community kind of provision. So whether it's just even coming down for a coffee or just a chat, and we're trying to provide a kind of a range of activities within the hub. So whether it's a family support group, or if it's a music group, or an art group, I mean, we're very much being guided by the people that are accessing the premises. It's like what is it would keep you coming back, and as I say, we want to be kind of directly accordingly kind of things. So, but we're also looking at a number of those gaps that have been identified, and how can we contribute to that kind of community planning approaches, because we recognise that we have got a responsibility to play here in terms of this is the lessons that have been learned, but as I say, more importantly, about how to move forward. And what we're seeing is, particularly within the kind of justice settings as well, that some of those pathways are just
Oh, we can't hear you now, Mark. I don't know, is it unplugged?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're back.
Sorry about that. I think just looking at some of the kind of different kind of justice pathways, so whether it's people kind of coming out of prison or coming out of police offices or court buildings, so we're looking at trying to kind of bridge some of those gaps where that we can help people kind of get from A to B, because sometimes that's where people are falling through those gaps. So we're just really kind of trying to do what we can, but again, it's probably a plea to try and be supported as well, to kind of so that we can then support others kind of thing, because it's very difficult for small grassroots organisations to just be getting by on a kind of, I mean, you're not thinking about what happens in the next year or whatever. I mean, sometimes it's month by month kind of thing at best, and it would be good if we had that wee bit of kind of security to know that there would be kind of resources in place for the kind of couple of years or whatever to really give us a real kind of bash at it. But as I say, no, there's plenty on our plate. There's certainly plenty of demand, and there's plenty to be done. And I think just like in closing, like Suzanne had said there, that my advice to other organisations would be about recognise the vital connections that you're having with people. These can be life-changing. Sometimes they're not easily measurable, or they don't fit into nice wee neat outcome boxes that maybe big funding organisations look for, but to know that you've made that connection. And I think that you need to recognise that as a real success, because it's making such a difference. And you just hope through time, like Fraser was saying there, about making that connection, then before you know it, it could be the springboard to other bigger and better things, and to be that, just to plant that seed and to be kind of walking alongside people can be just such it's life-changing, just even as organisations, to see those successes. So never lose sight of those wee things that can be the beginning of major things. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Mark. Super eloquent again. I think we'll be cutting that out and putting it on social media. That was a lovely way to end there. So, and Fraser, over to you. We've just got a few minutes left, but it'd be lovely to hear from you about what comes next for TripleTapTech.
So what we're going to focus on next is, again, reaching out to the visually impaired sort of community of Scotland. Again, so our plans are to set up what we're going to call remote groups, so in people's own sort of location, so maybe over Edinburgh, sort of down Ayrshire, etc., all over Scotland, basically, where they'll be able to come sort of join a local group and get tech support on that, but again, build up ties with our people with visual impairment. That feels sort of very important. When it comes to sort of the office, and what we're going to do is we're going to try doing a joint, or sort of a mix of both the virtual sort of learning that we've been doing over the past year, sort of the remote learning is probably a better word to use for it, and also encouraging people to come back into the office in order to get that sort of face-to-face learning, which sometimes can make all the difference on it. But I think one of the major focuses that we will be putting our for lack of a better term, putting our sights towards will be just building up the community again. So over the past years, communities that have sort of been torn apart due to the lockdown, people have been left isolated, people have been left to their own devices. And for some people that's been great, for other people it's been not so good. So we're going to try and encourage people to come back together and build up their ties again. That is very important, and so especially in this sort of modern lifestyle where it's so easy to be left behind.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Fraser. So thank you again to all of you for your time this morning and for taking the time to fill in the application. And a huge congratulations again for getting shortlisted, because as I said, it was a fierce competition. There's a lot of people been doing amazing work for their communities over the last 18 months. So huge congratulations. For anybody who hasn't signed up yet, the Scottish Charity Awards are on the 1st of October. It's a virtual event, so you can join us in your glad rags and your slippers, which is what I did last year. Sit in your front room, have a wee drink, celebrate all the wonderful things that actually we've been able to do together over the last 18 months. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you all there and finding out who the winner's going to be. So thanks again for your time, and we'll see you on the 1st of October. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheerio.
Bye.